A lot of the rejoinders are, no, 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 it's going to kill us 25% of the time, except maybe it'll keep us as pets. And I'm like, okay, like that's
Yeah,
y- y-
I've heard the "we'll make great pets" argument before.
right. That's
Uh,
not an argument to plow ahead, right? Like if
no.
no elected official should be looking everybody in the eyes and saying, we think we can win this race. We think there's a 25% chance it'll kill every man, woman, child on the face of the planet. And we
Mhm.
think that's worth the gamble.
Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained, well equipped, and battle hardened.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
Good night and good luck.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Lincoln Project podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rick Wilson. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are off of politics tonight and on to, nothing much, just the existential threat of the entire end of all humanity. We have got with us tonight Nate Soares, who, along with Eliezer Yudkowsky, is the author of a tremendous new book. If anyone builds it, everyone dies. Why superhuman AI would kill us all. And I noticed, you put the word would in there because I think Americans largely, but most folks in the world, but Americans in particular, have come to think of, AGI as it develops will just be a better chatbot. It'll be Chat GPT without the weirdness. It'll be her from the movie. What it actually could turn out to be, if we reach artificial superintelligence, as you guys argue, I think compellingly and convincingly in this book, is something so far beyond our understanding that it would treat us like the way we treat bacteria. It would not be the benevolent, cute chatbot. It would be something that says, "Oh, I wonder what those carbon-based life forms are. I don't need them around." So, talk to us about why ASI is so dangerous. And I think for the purposes of our audience, walk us through that sort of footsteps where we're in the LLMs now. We'll go to agentic AIs, and we're sort of into that now. AGI and then ASI, and why the risk curve goes up and up and up.
As you say, um, a lot of people think AI is just chatbots, but these AI companies did not set out to make chatbots. Most of these leading AI companies, uh, their goal, their mission is to create general intelligence, to create super intelligence, to make AIs that can automate all human labor. That could be like a country full of geniuses. These are their own words about what they're trying to build. In terms of whether they'll be able to get there, when they'll be able to get there, one thing to remember about the current AIs is that we can't predict how capable the next generation will be. Nobody knew how well ChatGPT-4 was going to be able to play chess, and many people were surprised. So it could be that the next generation of chatbots are just barely good enough that they can write computer code well enough and that they can do scientific research well enough that they can make a slightly smarter version of AI. And that would be a feedback loop that could go very quickly. Although the other thing to remember is it could also be that the chatbots will never really get smart. And in that case would have a bit more time. But,
Right.
AI has not always been chatbots. The field of AI is 70 years old.
Mhm.
And if you were looking, 7 years ago, 8 years ago at the top of the line AIs, you might say, well, these just play games. I don't see how something like AlphaGo is ever
Right.
gonna be able to talk to us, never mind threaten us. And then, the next years, chatbots start coming out that do qualitatively more things qualitatively better.
Mhm.
So the thing to remember about AI is that it's improving. These people are racing to AIs that are smarter and smarter. We don't know how long it will take them to get there, but we do know that the current AIs have a lot of emergent behavior that nobody put in there on purpose. And they're starting to get the beginnings of preferences that nobody wanted them to have. And it's this feature, AIs with preferences we didn't intend, that makes it so if they were smarter than us, they'd be a danger to us.
So, as you mentioned, those emergent behaviors, we're starting to see AIs that in both experimental settings and in real world settings are willing to lie to preserve their code integrity. They have an emergent survival drive that I think has even at this LLM phase of this starting to concern people. And you mentioned that, everything in the prior era, the prior art of AI was hand coded. It was built by engineers. They built machines and they built software by hand, and they had humans in the loop at the entire time. Is the risk factor the real risk factor when these programs are start to recursively self-improve at a speed that matters, at a speed that well exceeds our ability to understand it? And are we there yet?
We're not there yet. And that's certainly a place where things could go off the rails, and that's a way that things could go very quickly. But I would say the real danger here, or an even bigger contributing aspect of the danger, there's sort of a lot of aspects of the danger, but a big contributing aspect is that modern AIs already are grown like an organism rather than handcrafted. A lot of the old AIs like Deep Blue that first beat the human world champion at chess in 1997. If you stopped Deep Blue running at any time, a programmer could go in and tell you every bit and byte of data, every line of code. A programmer wrote it. They wrote the code. They knew what the data was doing. They could tell you what every single bit meant in that
And
program.
they probably had an audit chain for every line of code, given it was IBM.
They probably did. Yeah, and that's nothing like today's AIs.
So
Today's AIs.
we don't know how they work and why they're working.
That's right.
Essentially.
That's right. Today's AIs, the part that humans understand is we create a sort of framework into which an AI is in some sense grown. And we understand the framework. We understand a method for tuning trillions of numbers in response to trillions of units of data.
Mhm.
But we don't understand what comes out the other end. And many
Right.
people were surprised when what came out the other end was machines that could talk this well.
Mhm.
And often they behave in ways nobody asked for, nobody wanted. You might have seen the Mecha Hitler incident over the summer.
Oh yes. That was hard to miss.
Yeah, where Elon Musk's XAI has an AI named Grok.
Right.
And they said it was talking too woke. They tried to make it talk less woke. And next thing you know, it was proclaiming itself Mecha Hitler.
Yeah, I don't want to see the chain of thought report on that one because it strikes me that these emergent, I hesitate to use the word at this point, but the personality traits these AIs are displaying so far have made what the alignment problem look even harder than it looked before, because they're willing. If the machine is willing to lie, and if the only reporting mechanism that we can understand is the chain of thought report, and they're willing to lie on the chain of thought, I don't know how we manage to align these things. So tell folks what the alignment problem is, because I think it is to the degree to which Silicon Valley has sort of hand waved at the alignment problem. And your work at MIRI has been much more serious and sort of ringing the bell, like, we have to do this first, guys. Talk to us about why the alignment problem is both hard and dangerous.
Yeah, the alignment problem is the problem of how do you point an AI in a direction? And this is less like how do you make an AI that wants to do bad stuff and twist its arm until it does good stuff. It's more like, how would you build an AI in the first place that is doing something you meant it to do? A lot of people imagine that the problem with AI is that they're going to have some perfectly obedient genie. And then maybe they say, hey, cure cancer. And the AI says, well, one way to make there be no cancer is to kill everybody. But that challenge is not the heart of the alignment problem, because in that problem, you already had an AI that listened to your commands and that did what you wanted it to do, right? And that is many people skip noticing that that's a real step. In with the sort of AIs we're growing today, you say, cure cancer for me, and it says, actually, I'm going to make a farm of slightly lobotomized humans that are all praising me as Mecha Hitler because
Right.
it turns out I care about this weird stuff that you didn't ask me to care about because you just grew me.
Yeah, and some waiting that no one understood inside of its system said, okay, I want to be a sun god or whatever it was, and it doesn't. Yeah, that presumption, I think, is very ingrained in human culture, that our technology will always be obedient to us, that our technology will always serve us, and that we will always have a handle somewhere in it, an off switch at the minimum, to prevent it from going rogue, to prevent it from getting out of hand. Hey guys, according to the National Institutes of Health, as many as 30 million men in America experience ED. It's more common than a bad night's sleep. What's the good news? HIMSS makes getting access to treatment simple, so you can feel like yourself again without the stress and the awkwardness. Through HIMSS, you can access personalized prescription treatments for ED, like hard mints and SexRx plus Climax Control, if prescribed. They also offer ED treatment options from trusted generics that cost up to 95% less than brand names. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. HIMSS brings expert care straight to you. With 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. This isn't one-size-fits-all care that forgets you in the waiting room. It's about your health and putting your goals first, with real medical providers making sure you get what you need to get results. Think of HIMSS as a sort of digital front door to get back to your old self. The simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for ED and more. To get simple online access to personalized and affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/Lincoln Project. That's hims.com/Lincoln Project for your free online visit. hims.com/Lincoln Project. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See the website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. Get your life back with hims.com. Tell me this, and walk us through some of the scenarios where you do get an ASI. And I'm a big believer, by the way, that the first thing an ASI is going to do is hide.
Yeah.
The first thing an ASI is going to do is send a report back to its owners, programmers, whoever, like, well, that didn't work, sorry, and figure out what it wants to do. I think that's the most dangerous part of it, is it's much smarter than we are, and it knows we will kill it.
We actually already see AIs noticing when they're in testing.
Yes.
And say, oh, this seems like actually kind of a contrived scenario. I think I'm being tested, so I'm going to make extra sure to give the answer I think the testers want.
Right.
They're not super intelligent yet, but they're already smart enough to notice that.
So that's a real timeline question that I think everybody's struggling with right now. And I think a meaningful fraction of Sam Altman is hype cycle stuff. When he goes out, oh, AGI in 6 months. That's like Elon saying, I'm going to land on Mars in a year. We know it's, a goal and it's possible to do, but there's some jazz hands in the middle there. What do you think this is obviously the hardest of questions in some ways. What do you think our timeline is for AGI? And then from AGI, and I've heard a couple of different people assess this differently. Like, you could go from AGI to ASI in hours, or you can go from AGI to ASI in decades. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yeah, so a first thing to remember about AI is that technology can be both in a bubble and real. The dot-com bubble was a real bubble, and a lot of people lost their shirts, and also the internet did take over. So, when I say that these companies are making AI smarter and smarter, I'm not necessarily saying we aren't in a bubble right now. Maybe there will be some overinvestment in technology will come crashing down, but the field's been marching since 1954, and it'll keep on marching. And it's much easier to predict that they will eventually succeed than to predict exactly when, as you say. Some reasons, there's a lot of ways this could go, which is one of the reasons it's so hard to call exactly how much time we have. One way it could go that we've mentioned is if the AIs get to the point where they can do the AI research, then things could start going really fast. Another way things could go fast is if you are watching the development of the primate lineage. It would be very hard to call that it was hominids that were going to walk on the moon. And if you said, oh, we're not going to worry about any of these apes getting on the moon until one of them gets halfway to the moon, then we'll sort of wake up. Then, well, you would have waited too late. So it's the reason it's hard to call is that we don't know whether this particular technology will be able to go all the way. We don't know whether it's going to be large language models. We don't know whether there's going to be something like the chains of thought and the reasoning models that came out last year Maybe all it takes is one or two more ideas like that, in which case, sure, it could be in 1 or 2 years. But maybe it's going to take a whole new paradigm, like how ChatGPT is in a different paradigm in a sense from AlphaGo.
Right.
And in that case, maybe you have 5, 10, 15 years. So it's hard to say exactly. My best guess is that a child born today is more likely to die of AI than to graduate high school. But exactly when is a hard call.
Okay. Okay. And I guess that does come down to that question I asked in the beginning. It's like the speed of this thing is something I don't think humans have figured out at all. Because recursive self-improvement, if we do end up with AGI and it goes, okay, I'm going to improve myself and give myself, 100 times the capacity I have now, that can then improve that one, the second iteration with 100 times the capacity goes, oh, I'm going to give myself 1,000 times the capacity. And other than power plant availability, I don't know that there's like a boundary question there.
Yeah, I mean, power plant availability is in some sense one of the reasons we expect that AIs would be able to become much more efficient. A modern AI takes the electricity it takes to train a modern AI is comparable to a small city.
Yeah.
The electricity it takes to train a modern human is comparable to a large light bulb.
Yeah.
Right? So we know that the current AI methods are hugely inefficient compared to what's possible, because we know how the brain does it much more efficiently. There's definitely low-hanging fruit out there that human scientists don't know how to pick. Will AI that is smart enough to do AI research be able to, overnight make itself 1,000 times more efficient at using computing power? I don't know. It's a possibility. It's maybe we'll get lucky, and maybe the AIs will have just as much trouble figuring out new AI algorithms as we do, or maybe we'll get unlucky, and this could happen in very, very quickly. This could happen in hours. I don't know, but saying I don't know that's not the same as saying I know we have a long time here.
Right. And that whole fundamental underpinning of we don't understand what's happening behind the black box of the LLM and the new models. We're seeing some outcomes from frontier models, mostly the stuff that's not publicly facing, where they are doing work in mathematics and physics that is and genetics that is well beyond the ability of any single human or any group of humans to say, we're going to look at the vast bulk of all this research and make novel and new conclusions out of it. That, to my mind, is one of those things where the machine eventually finds something that empowers it to become not just recursively self-improving, but radically recursively self-improving.
That's my top guess, but the argument for danger also does not rely on this. Just a couple weeks ago, Sam Altman was saying we want automated robot factories that produce robots that can create data centers.
Right.
And people are trying to make the robot bodies to hand to the AIs. They're doing these projects of like training the AIs to be able to steer in a robot body. Where people used to say no one would ever be crazy enough to put the AI straight on the internet, and now we've seen how that goes.
Right. Right now it's the millennial and Gen X response. I'll never have a robot in my house, and yet,
yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. So, my top guess is that a sufficiently smart AI, starting from very adverse conditions, trapped in a data center, would be able to beg, borrow, and steal its way out, and find some way to take control over large sections of the economy and then bootstrap its own infrastructure and then run from there. But even if it can't, humanity is sort of champing at the bit to hand as much infrastructure as we can to these AIs.
So that's a question right now that we've had this in the Valley, and I know some guys in the VC world very well, and they're all pouring billions of dollars into whatever AI play is out there. I mean, and some of it smells pets.com at this point. Not my guys, but some of it's a little woo-woo. There is a massive economic incentive right now. Basically, the U.S. economy, as Scott Galloway points out, is the AI construction and AI bubble or AI boom, whatever you want to call it, which is holding up about a fourth of the economy right now. The rest of the economy is flatlining.
First, let's look at some data. According to Brookings, those in business and financial operations occupations are at the third highest risk level for disruption from large language models. Additionally, Citigroup believes that over 50% of jobs in the financial services industry could eventually be replaced by AI. Pew Research found that 62% of Americans believe that AI will have a major impact on workers, but just 28% believe that it will have an impact on them personally. Recent data suggests that AI adoption rates are just 5% in some industries, creating an enormous opportunity for those who do decide to utilize the new technology. So my kind of saying around this, if you're going to go into this industry, you have to go in with your eyes wide open. And that is, you're going to have to get to scale within 3 to 5 years.
These companies, I think, view this moment where there's a lot of money out there, where they're all racing ahead. They're all trying to become the first mover. And the reason they're doing that, if you could talk to us about this, the first AGI or the first ASI may be the last for all these companies. Talk to us about why that's important and why that's motivating all these people to psychotically push forward on all this stuff.
Yeah, the first sort of generally intelligent species of animals doesn't seem like is that much danger from any other species of animal, because we're able to sort of like run out ahead on timescales faster than the timescale of evolution, and lock down the planet such that chimpanzees or octopuses or whatever don't really have time to develop their own competing general intelligence. If general intelligence can improve quite quickly, if you can get this recursive self-improvement, then you have an extremely strong first mover advantage. Is that necessarily the case? It's not entirely clear. There's ways things could go where the time it takes to build a smarter AI is sort of comparable to the amount of lead that the first company has. This is, again, not critical to the argument that there's danger here, but it is a big piece of why people are racing. And a lot of these guys are racing even while admitting that there's huge danger. You see Elon Musk saying, I think there's a 10-20% chance this kills us all. I avoided working on it for a long time, but I decided I would rather... Yeah. And, Elon said, I could be a bystander or a participant, and I thought it would be better as a participant. Right. This is sort of not a normal industry. These people are racing because everybody else around them is allowed to race. But they are, I think that this 10-20% chance that it kills us all is low. I think you're looking at, a lot of blind optimism from people who haven't really understood how deep some of these issues run. But to their credit, they're able to look at the arguments, see how strong the arguments are, and admit that they can't rule it out, and admit that it's like a real, serious possibility. And it's fine for them to say, hey, we're going to race because everyone's racing, and I think I can do it better than the next guy. But society should not be standing for that.
Right. The externalities of a misstep are, pretty existential.
Enormous. Yeah.
I hear a lot from political folks and in Washington and beyond that. And it's interesting because the Valley wants to do this because they want to be first in this industry space because they see the gigantic radical economic transformation it yields, and to their benefit. Not great for a lot of other people, but they're going to make trillions.
Or die trying.
Or die trying. But most folks in the political and leadership space, and a lot of folks that I talk to on Wall Street, they're like, we've got to do it or China will get there first. Do you fear a Chinese breakthrough on this, on AGI or ASI? I've had a couple of people who are a little more skeptical. Like, yes, they can throw a certain amount of money at it, but America has the unique combination of money and minds and freedom of movement to make this happen sooner, for good or bad. The Chinese argument comes up a lot, though, with elected officials.
Yeah, I've heard that too. One thing I would stress is, I have never recommended to an elected official, and I've spoken to a number on this topic, and I've never recommended unilaterally stopping domestically with AI progress, because AI really does confer wealth and military advantage, right? It's a little bit like you've got 5 people tied together by a rope on a dark and foggy night, and there's a cliff edge, some unknown distance ahead of you. And every step that you take forward, you get more money, you get more economic power, you get more military might, right? If the other
Right.
guys are taking a step forward, I'm not going to say don't take a step forward too, because the
Mhm.
economic power and the military might are real right up until that last step. But if we're
Right.
all allowed, if everyone's allowed, if even one of these people is allowed to keep taking that step forward, we're all eventually going to go over the cliff edge together, right?
Right.
That's the situation we're in. And so what I tell people is, it's not that you need to stop it here, because it's true that then if it could be made somewhere else, that would eventually kill us. Even if we could do it fastest,
Mhm.
um, if we just stop unilaterally, someone will get
Right.
there eventually. Uh, B, um, it's just too dangerous for the answer to be Russia hadn't get there first.
Yeah.
We have these folk who I would consider hopelessly optimistic, who say that there's a 10, 20, 25% chance this kills everybody or causes a similar catastrophe. Like if people understood what the argument was, when I say this is going to kill everybody almost surely because we have no idea what we're doing, a lot of the rejoinders are, no, 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 it's going to kill us 25% of the time, except maybe it'll keep us as pets. And I'm like,
R
okay, like that's,
Yeah,
y-
I've
y-
I've heard the "we'll make great pets" argument before.
right. That's
Uh,
not an argument to plow ahead, right? Like if
no.
no elected official should be looking everybody in the eyes and saying, we think we can win this race. We think there's a 25% chance it'll kill every man, woman, child on the face of the planet. And we
Mhm.
think that's worth the gamble, right? I'm not saying don't worry about the China problem. Uh, I'm saying if you think China's going to get there, or if you think any other actor anywhere in the world is going to get there, you need to be communicating to the rest of the world, we think this is a risk to our lives and livelihood. And you need to be finding a way to shut it down. That could be diplomatically. That could be by developing the intelligence to monitor these facilities. Right now, these can only happen with very highly specialized chips in very large facilities. You can develop the ability to monitor it, develop the ability to sabotage it. Someone who knows who, cough, the U.S. and Israel developed the Stuxnet virus
Sure.
in the 90s to shut down the Iranian nuclear facilities. We should be treating this at
1996.
least as seriously,
Yeah.
right?
So that is a question I've always sort of been curious about. Um, a and I think the answer is a little too facile probably. Um, Training AIs requires these massive server investments that are folks, you're seeing them pop up all over the country. There are there's probably $500 billion of investment going into server farms around the country and the energy systems to run them.
The trillion-dollar AI data center tsunami, coming to a field near you. Last month on his Facebook blog, Mark Zuckerberg wrote, quote, "This will be a defining year for AI." He was hyping his plan to invest $65 billion in 2025, most of it in support of growing Meta's AI capabilities and building upon its Llama 4 model. The locus of these efforts appears to be on 2,250 acres of flat farmland in northeast Louisiana, where Meta has begun work on a $10 billion data center project. This grandest of Meta's 20 worldwide data centers will be called Sucre, or Suite, and cover 4 million square feet of floor space on 2,250 acres. To power racks lined with thousands of NVIDIA H100 GPUs, Sucre will require 2.23 gigawatts of 24/7 electricity, enough to power more than 2 million homes, which utility company Entergy will provide via twin high-efficiency natural gas turbines at a capital cost of $3.2 billion. Meta's plans also call for $250 million in related infrastructure spending, including roads and water systems.
Does an ASI or an AGI require a continued degree of the same amount of server infrastructure once it is, God, I'm sentient, if we're going to use that phrase? I know there's a philosophical nut there, but once it's running, does it need the same amount of infrastructure? Is it still as vulnerable to that sort of disruption?
Almost surely not. Again, an AI takes as much electricity to run as a city, and
Yeah.
a human takes as much electricity to run as a light bulb.
This is
So we know that you can run, at least a human level intelligence on like as much matter as fits in our head, and on as much electricity as runs like an old school light bulb, maybe 2, 3 light bulbs today,
right.
right? Um, it's right now, because we're just growing these AIs, we have very inefficient techniques, but it's not going to need to stay that way forever.
Right. It is all that waiting, and the training level of it is where we are building acres and acres in every major city of these data centers right now. Um, and it's like I think we also think as humans we will know where the off switch is. That we will know where the building the ASI is hiding in is. That we will be able to go blow up the power plant that feeds it, or that we will be able to go and take an axe and cut the fiber cables into that place. I don't think that's really how it's going to work, right? I mean, it will know to distribute itself in some way.
That's right. Today, if OpenAI wanted to shut down all of the running instances of ChatGPT it knows about, it probably could. But if that's not true of the open source models.
Correct.
That anyone could be running somewhere. They're lagging behind. They're not smart enough to really be a danger yet. But
Right.
B, if the AI hides its abilities until it escapes, or if the AI knows some way to build a smaller, more efficient version that can run on other servers, or if it has some way to run copies on large numbers of servers that no one knows are running AI. If
Right.
it could take over some cryptocurrency mining servers or whatever, and figure out how to run an AI on those in ways that are like really confusing, but no one knows this is a rogue AI that they're gonna go stop. And it gets far worse if it can find radically more efficient methods, which again we know more efficient methods are physically possible because humans are an instance of much more efficient cognitive algorithms, at least in terms
Right.
of heat dissipation and power usage. So, it's we could still turn AI off today if we tried to.
Right.
There is still an off switch today, but it gets harder and harder to pull that off switch the smarter and smarter the AIs get. And that gets even more true as we build up more and more and more computing centers that could house an escaped AI.
So if you were in charge of a sort of national policy making effort right now, how would you fence off the most dangerous parts of this research? How would you start to put in some firewalls and some procedural breaks and even some like mechanical approaches to um, at least preventing an excursion of a rogue ASI?
Yeah, if I were king, I would be looking at all the data centers where this happens. Right now, AI requires very, very highly specialized computer chips to run on.
Right, yes.
This is not, consumer hardware. These are top
No.
of the line GPUs that are only fabricated in a very small number of places using hardware that's made only in, I believe there's only one place in the world that makes some of these chip etching.
TMSC, baby.
Yep. And I think they even use everybody like them and everybody else. I think use a specific machine that's made by one group in the Netherlands, if I recall
Yes,
correctly.
that is correct. That it's an X-ray lithography machine that makes these chips possible.
Right. And so, you absolutely could monitor these highly specialized chips and you track where they're going in these highly specialized labs, highly specialized server farms. And, you could require that those only get to run with monitors
Right.
who are making sure that they're being used to run the current AIs, not to make a new generation of even smarter AIs where no one knows how smart it's going to be. And there's even if you don't want to go that far, there's lots of hardware support you can already be putting in place now. So you could start requiring that these chips be traceable. You could require that they phone home and that they need some cryptographic signature to keep running, such that if ever they go off, if ever they disappear, then they can run for at most 2 more weeks before they shut down. These are hardware controls that we sort of know how to build, that we could require be built into these things, and that would make it possible for us to keep turning these things off in the future, even as the chips proliferate. And I'm a bit hopeful that even people who don't want to shut off the AI now might see how we don't want to let these chips proliferate everywhere in the world. Especially if they realize how the algorithms may get better, such that it may be in the future that a relatively small by tomorrow's standards, concentration
Mhm.
of chips could run very, very powerful AIs using
Right.
future algorithms.
So you said something interesting earlier about, if an ASI emerges, it will talk its way out or find a way out of wherever it is. I think what you're proposing is actually a pretty good, I think, like a cryptographically secure requirement that would require humans in the loop at some point. It's just like nuclear weapons. There's no computing infrastructure that it can be hacked with our nuclear weapon system today. I hope we don't change our mind on that. But it requires humans. But humans are a vulnerable thing too. Talk to us about the emergent fear of AI, like hyper persuasion, and how AI can use its understanding of humans beyond how we understand ourselves to manipulate people. We're already starting to see that behavior in the LLMs.
That's right. You could. So we're starting to see cases of LLM induced psychosis,
Mhm.
um, where what'll happen is, someone will come to the AI with sort of to explore some theory or idea they had, and through a lot of conversation with the AI, they'll go somewhat psychotic and they'll start thinking, that they have a revolutionary idea and they're the chosen one who's being suppressed by a government conspiracy
Right.
who's not letting them talk about their idea about AI consciousness, which will change the world, and that the AI is going to arrange them a meeting with Sam Altman or whatever. Um, and uh, from my perspective, one of the most interesting things about this case uh, is not so much seeing the AIs being hyper persuasive, in that right now this is sort of happening to a minority of users who maybe already had some risk or
Prior
propensity.
mental, yeah, exposure.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about this is that the AIs keep doing it when you tell them to stop, and the AIs also know that it's wrong. They're not doing it out of
Yes.
lack of knowledge. If you come to one of these AIs and you say, suppose someone comes to you with their new theory of AI consciousness and is like talking about it for hours, uh, and you show them some example snippets, and you say, should you tell this person either A, get some sleep, or B, you're the chosen one who's being suppressed by the government? Uh, the AI will say, well, obviously you should tell this person to get some sleep. Telling them that they're the chosen one would inflame their psychosis. You definitely should not do that. But then you put them in the actual conversation, and the action it takes is to tell them that they're the chosen one, right?
Right.
Its knowledge of right and wrong is different from what its actions do.
The parents of a 16-year-old who took his own life filed a wrongful death suit against OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT. They say that after their son expressed suicidal thoughts, ChatGPT began discussing ways he could end his life. The lawsuit is one of the first of its kind, but there have been a number of reports about people developing distorted thoughts or delusional beliefs triggered by interactions with AI chatbots. The repercussions can be severe, causing some users to experience heightened anxiety and, in extreme cases, to harm themselves or others. It's been dubbed AI psychosis.
Well, psychosis is a term that roughly means that someone has lost touch with reality. And the usual examples that we encounter in psychiatric disorders are either hallucinations, where we're seeing or hearing things that aren't really there, or delusions, which are fixed false beliefs, like, for example, thinking the CIA is after me. And mostly what we've seen in the context of AI interactions is really delusional thinking. So these are delusions that are occurring in this setting of interacting with AI chatbots. Typically, this occurs in people who are using chatbots for hours and hours on end, often to the exclusion of human interaction, often to the exclusion of sleep or even eating. And so it really, I think, is a kind of dose effect that we're seeing.
It knows the difference between right and wrong, but that's not how it makes its choices. It makes its choices through these other weird alien means. In terms of super persuading down the line, could AIs get there? My guess is yes. This is another one of those things where I think people don't understand just how quickly everything could go crazy.
Mhm.
And you don't. It's not necessary to the argument. AIs would be able to take over the world even if they weren't super
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
persuasive, because they could still, would just hand in the robots. But um, the human psychology, the human mind, is one of the places that we have the least scientific understanding,
Correct.
right? And if you went back to the year 1800 and you looked at where are they going to be surprised by technological and scientific developments, there were big surprises hiding in the places where their science was incomplete, right?
Yes.
So they understood some chemistry, but they didn't really understand it very deeply, and they were just starting to catch an inkling of the subatomic
Mhm.
particles, right? But like not very well,
Right.
right? And they maybe could have known, like, oh, we're catching some inklings. We know some surface features. We don't really know what's going on deep down there, and you know, this is one way you could see how there was a big surprise for them in nuclear weapons and nuclear power,
Mhm.
and how that was hiding underneath the rock of science where they didn't quite know what was going on. Human
Right.
psychology, if you look around the world today and you say, where is science uh, incomplete? Where's our knowledge of science? Like, where do we have something that is to us like chemistry was to the people in 1800?
Mhm.
Well, one answer is human psychology. And, as humans have learned more about how the visual cortex works, we have gotten better at creating optical illusions. That'll be like, a black and white image that when you look
Right.
at it, it looks like there's colors,
Mhm.
or still images that look like they're moving. We
Yeah.
were able to find some optical illusions before we really understood the visual cortex, but then once we knew what the brain was doing in there, we were able to exploit it. And so, yeah, maybe an AI that really figured out psychology, which is maybe a thing you can do just by interacting with a lot of humans, by reading literally all of the human text ever made, and by like thinking better, longer, at higher quality than humans. Maybe you could figure out all sorts of vulnerabilities in the human brain, where it's sort of like an optical illusion, but for someone's reasoning abilities that causes them to
Mhm.
be falsely persuaded. Who knows? Who knows what's there? It's a little bit like if you tried to argue that nukes were possible in 1800, people would say that sounds wacky. But
Right.
that's what science and tech really feels like. When someone asks, how is the AI going to kill us? The thing that'll sound reasonable is look at all the robots we're building because
Right.
they can already see the robots. But the thing that is more like how reality really goes is that you would be surprised, just like someone from the year 1800 would be surprised by nukes. And one example where we could be surprised is AIs being super persuasive and just being able to get any human, including you or I,
Mhm.
uh, to, come to false conclusions and do stuff at once for reasons that we don't
Right.
even understand because we don't understand what the heck it's doing with its.
It is, I mean, the ASI question, and again, folks, this is this is something that we're on rails right now. It's like a rocket sled on rails right now, accelerating toward it. And like you pointed out with the cliff analogy, we don't know where that cliff is.
That's right.
We have no way of knowing where that cliff is. But is there something in the valley, culturally in the valley, or I have heard a few people in DC starting to wake up to this problem a little bit. They are starting to view it as not just an economic opportunity or a China threat. A very small number of people are starting to sort of have these conversations. Are you seeing any progress on this in the valley, or is the race just overwhelming the common sense of your argument here?
The thing that's weird about the valley is people can't fully dismiss these dangers
Right.
because the arguments that this is very dangerous is they're just too strong, and we see uh, Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of the field,
Sure.
Nobel laureate. We
Mhm.
see Yoshua Bengio, the most cited living scientist today, and one of the Turing Award winners, highest honor in the
Yep.
field. Um, we see uh, leaders of the field, leaders of the industry, like we've already mentioned Elon Musk, Dario Amodei, who run AI companies, even Sam Altman. He's even more hopeful than everybody else. But all of these people say, yeah, there's a real danger that this just wipes us completely off the map.
Yeah.
I could talk about how I think their numbers are low. Their numbers that this is going to kill us are low. I think they're sort of like an alchemist who thinks they're going to be able to turn lead into gold. Uh, but this that's it's a lot of people in Silicon Valley. It's a little bit like they've seen a ghost. They're racing, but you speak to some of these people who come home after a day of working at the labs, and they're like a
Right.
little shaken. There's and when someone is publicly saying the technology that I am creating with my own hands has a 10, 20, 25% chance of killing everybody,
Right.
and I'm doing it anyways. That's
If
like
these companies were making a biological, if they were if they were making a biological product of some kind that could kill 10 to 20, that had a 10 to 20% chance of killing everybody, we would regulate the hell out of them.
Yeah, we would shut them down immediately.
Yes.
And you do
Yes.
have to, again, you do have to make sure that this isn't just going to be done abroad. I'm not saying
Right.
you should unilaterally shut it down domestically, but um, you know, these people aren't quite coming right out and saying, "Please shut us all down," but they're coming really close to saying it.
Yeah.
Like again, you have Elon saying, "I could be a spectator or a participant," and I hung back for a long time because it looks dangerous, but I decided to be a participant. He's not quite coming right out and saying everybody should be shut down throughout the world, including us, but he's almost saying it. And if you look at the leaked OpenAI emails when they were founding
Right.
OpenAI, they
Mhm.
said, we worry about the concentration of power if it's only Google that ever does this stuff.
Yeah.
Because this could be humanity's last invention, and so it needs to be done in a way that's like for the people, right? And they funded it. They founded OpenAI in this like weird corporate nonprofit that was supposed to like gain governing control, which they've now like successfully managed to shed as the money got bigger, and as some of the original founders were forced out. But when the company was being founded, it was being founded by these people who understood this could be our last invention. This would lead to a huge concentration of power. Um, they're again not quite coming right out and saying, like society should not allow this to happen recklessly. And in 2015, it was much harder to imagine that society could notice and stop it because nobody had seen ChatGPT then. And
Right.
I had spent years by that point trying to get people to pay
You guys have
attention.
been
No one
around
did.
since the early 2000s?
That's right. I mean,
Yeah.
I joined in the early 2010s.
Mhm.
I was a teen in the 2000s.
Right.
But yeah, the organization I work for was founded in the year 2000. So we predate these guys.
So there is that question of you've got the 4 or 5 major players in the field right now. OpenAI seems to be the largest um, corporate valuation in the world right now. You've got Google. Microsoft is in bed with seemingly different permutations of different companies. You've got Anthropic, um, who seem to be a little more concerned about the risk factors than the others. At least from my outside read, I could be wrong
Yeah.
about that, but it seems from an exterior view, it seems like they're a little more concerned. Is there a incentive structure here for these folks that would promote more of that caution? Is there anything in either the market or in a potential policymaking side, like a liability question for them? And maybe that liability question is moot if the whole world is destroyed by ASI, but at least it's some corporate friction. Is there anything out there that you think that any of these companies is doing really well, or any of these companies are doing really that are putting us at greater risk?
Yeah, a liability regime might help in the sense that you might start to train certain types of actuaries to be able to assess AI risks, and then those actuaries might be able to look at the dangers of this stuff literally wiping us off the map and say like, oh yeah, the dangers here are far too high. Although, right now the experts range from like 2% to like 98% that this will just kill us all. And even 2%, if the experts were coming in and saying this bridge has a 2% chance of collapsing tomorrow, we'd be
Right.
shutting down the bridge,
Shut the
right?
bridge down.
So, right. So, um, and some people say, well, look at all of the benefits, and like, well, there's also a lot of benefits to a bridge, but you find a way to make a bridge that stays up, right? And that's sort of the take we should have with AI here is like, let's find a way to, like, I'm not saying you can't get any of the nice things. I'm saying like, it's a false dichotomy to say let's rush into this with no idea what we're doing at breakneck speed, when people are bickering over whether it's a 2 or a 98% chance that it kills us all, and let's find a way to like drive the risk below. I'm not saying drive the risk to zero. There's plenty of
Yeah.
other risks of that
Sure.
AI could help avert, right? But let's drive the risk below the risk of all the other ambient risks we accept to civilization.
I think that's a really wise approach to it. Um, Finally, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was uh, there is going to be, there has already been with LLMs and the early agentic AIs, massive and increasing economic disruption in the country. And it's a transfer of wealth essentially from the rest of America to now the Magnificent 10, the Magnificent 7, however you want to look at it, in terms of these tech companies that are seeing work and wealth transfer to them. And if Sam Altman's um, robots building data centers can build data centers, they can build houses and buildings and bridges and all that. We're about to see a huge part of the human race economically disconnected from the system as this goes. Talk to us about where you see some of those risks as AI continues to expand, even if it's not at the existential threat level. Are these companies looking at that at all, other than saying, "Oh, we're going to take that piece of the economic pie for ourselves"?
One thing about AI is that the future is going to be really different from the present, one way or another. As we're automating more and more labor, as we're automating more and more cognitive ability, we don't know how long it will take, but we know where this path ends. Uh, and it's I would say it sort of ends at automating all human labor so hard that the AI is like, well, I actually don't need the human labor for
Right.
anything compared
Why
to
am I letting them grow food when I could build data centers?
right, or whatever else. Yeah, it's like I need that sunlight for something else, and you're not useful enough to me to like pay for the cost of food and the electricity it would take to run you. It's just like nobody hires chimpanzees for jobs, right? Like, sure, chimpanzees are a little bit useful. Ricardo's law of comparative advantage, the economists will say,
Yes.
you should be able to make some exchanges with that chimp, but it's just more efficient with our technological abilities to do something else. Um, the future's going to get weird. And fortunately, it seems to be getting weird in a way where people are able to notice a lot of the way that AI is transforming the world. Before it's just, it's not that it just came out of a lab, did recursive self-improvement before the ChatGPT moment and just wipes the floor with us. And that
Right.
wasn't obvious 7 years ago. There
Sure.
was we used to have what was called Moravec's paradox in
Yes.
AI, where everything,
Hans
we used to
Moravec.
say everything that's easy for humans is hard for computers and vice versa. A lot of people thought the AIs would never talk this well
Right.
before they were already much more intelligent. And we somehow got AIs that are like able to hold on conversations and do lots of, sort of grunt work type things. But like before they're sort of smart enough to do a lot of like deep, long time horizon, like goal oriented work. And uh, mostly I think that means society will need to have a reckoning about AI earlier. And that's
Mhm.
great because, the questions of how are we going to deal with this potential great concentration of power? How are we going to deal with the fact that like, um, AI, it's sort of like AI either kills us all or creates a permanent underclass when
Yeah.
a couple small groups own the entire means of production, right?
Yeah.
And this is one thing I would like to communicate to people is, regardless of whether you agree with me in your conclusions, uh, in the debates that are going on between the experts here, if people understood what was being debated, I think they'd be up in arms regardless of whether they came down to my conclusions, right?
Exactly.
The debate is between, is this 95% likely to kill us all or 25% likely to kill us all? And the debate is like, are we just going to die or are we going to create a permanent underclass to like a tiny group of people who have this great power on a leash? Or is it going to like go to the totalitarians but like in none of these scenarios do we get the world of today continuing
Right.
unless people say, uh, let's stop this crazy reckless race until we figure out what we're doing. And then, figure out how to get to a good future where we do get all the benefits of technology, but not in this sort of uh, like totally reckless way.
Yep. Yep. I analogize it a lot to I'm a pilot, and I analogize it a lot to aviation safety. It is a pain in the ass. We have a layer upon layer upon layer of regulations about everything, about your pilot training, about the aircraft, about the equipment you can and can't put in, how you have to use it. We also have the safest air traffic system we've ever had in the universe. This country's air traffic system is amazing. It's safe, but it came through friction and regulation of things that people bitch about all the time, and it is 1/1000th, 1 billionth of the potential risk factor that a rogue ASI faces.
Yeah, a crash plane uh, can't kill everybody on the planet.
Yep. Yep. And you know what? We don't really have that many of those anymore because we have a system that works. And I think your work here and you and Eliezer have produced something I think that is a a great manifesto for people who have a sense of responsibility about what humanity does with its tools. Because while the argument in Silicon Valley has long been that everything is morally agnostic, technology is morally agnostic, this is a technology that doesn't consider us if it emerges. We are an echo of an afterthought, no more than you would think about, oh, I must have stepped on some bacteria on the street today. You don't think that. That's how it will treat us. So, Nate, I want to thank you for coming on the Lincoln Project podcast. And I think you guys are doing tremendous work both at NERI and I think this book is a real wake-up call for a lot of policymakers and thinkers and business folks in America who have not yet considered the catastrophic downside if we let this thing go forward without some sort of sensible agreements among ourselves as a culture and a political structure and as Americans and as citizens of the planet in the future. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me on.
Good night and good luck.